The Star's 10 News sources confirmed to us that a San Diego sheriff's deputy is under investigation by the DEA.
The deputy worked at this building here in Kearny Mesa for several years. I get a tip that he was escorted out of the building, and he is now under investigation by the DEA.
DEA and ICE agents stormed San Diego before sunrise, targeting one of their own, a sheriff's deputy accused of working with the cartel. Within hours, the so-called dirty deputy and several cartel leaders were in custody. The city woke up to headlines of betrayal and corruption inside the badge, as one of California's largest joint raids exposed a criminal network hiding behind law enforcement itself.
Sources inside the sheriff's department tell us that based on the nature of the investigation, they believe the DEA is looking into whether he has connections to a drug cartel.
A sheriff's deputy once trusted with guarding the border was now the focus of a federal sting. The anchor voice on every local station said it best. A deputy sworn to uphold the law is now accused of helping a cartel break it. The Drug Enforcement Administration, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and the San Diego Sheriff's Internal Affairs had launched a joint operation that exposed corruption running straight through the department's own ranks. Federal sources confirmed that alongside multiple cartel arrests, one uniformed deputy was taken into custody, a man who had spent years building the illusion of loyalty while allegedly feeding the cartels he was meant to fight.
Agents with the Drug Enforcement Administration deal with underground border tunnels and drug dealers. Now they're investigating this man, a fellow law enforcement officer. 10 News is not revealing his name.
For investigators, this wasn't another drug bust. It was a betrayal of the badge, the kind that corrodes an entire system from the inside. Officials described the raid as a takedown of a criminal network embedded within law enforcement itself. The man at the center of it all is still officially unnamed, but law enforcement insiders paint a damning picture. A San Diego County Sheriff's deputy with years of border enforcement experience, once praised for coordinating anti-smuggling patrols and mentoring younger officers. The same deputy now under federal investigation for allegedly leaking DEA intel and tipping off cartel couriers before major raids.
And Kathleen, specifically, ICE wanted jail and arrest records for 4 individuals. Now, in this statement just released within the hour by the Sheriff's Department, they say
sources confirm that when DEA agents moved in, they confiscated his cell phone and encrypted hard drives. Forensic teams discovered cartel contacts, coded messages, and photographs tying him to known Sinaloa affiliates. Agents say the communications revealed details of checkpoint schedules, surveillance blind spots, and patrol rotations, information that could only have come from inside the department. According to one insider, he wasn't just compromised, he was part of their logistics. Internal Affairs quietly escorted him out of the sheriff's headquarters in Kearny Mesa weeks before the raid, placing him on administrative leave. Publicly, the department cited ongoing investigation. Privately, federal officers were already mapping his connections.
Supporters said the policy would help the immigrant community to trust local deputies when reporting crime.
And as an immigrant myself, I know firsthand what it means to be afraid to call for help.
The pattern of corruption stretched far beyond casual collusion. Investigators now believe the deputy played a key role in coordinating shipments, warning cartel drivers of upcoming patrols, authorizing fake vehicle inspections, and even clearing specific license plates through the system. Each act looked routine. Each one allowed another ton of narcotics to move north. The deputy, once described by colleagues as calm and dependable, had allegedly become a trusted contact for traffickers moving through San Diego's underground corridors. And when investigators cross-checked phone logs, they found something chilling. Dozens of other deputies had his number stored under false names, suggesting a wider web of cooperation or, at the very least, knowledge.
County jails, the new policy requires a federal judge to sign off before the Sheriff's Department can transfer an inmate to ICE.
It says that if the federal government wants the help from the county, they need an arrest warrant.
Federal sources told local media that the suspect's double life began to unravel when DEA analysts noticed recurring data leaks during tunnel surveillance operations near Otay Mesa. Sensitive patrol information had been reaching traffickers hours, sometimes minutes, after being logged. That anomaly became the first thread that would eventually pull apart one of the most secretive corruption rings in California law enforcement history. The investigation began months ago, quietly and methodically. DEA cyber units flagged unusual data transfers linked to the Sheriff's Department servers. ICE intelligence teams, already monitoring cartel communications, intercepted encrypted messages that referenced the cop in San Diego. The phrase showed up again and again.
We have become aware of a DEA investigation into a San Diego County Sheriff's deputy. Our understanding is it involves a cartel. We would like to discuss any issues with our reporting this information with you. And this is the response we got.
By midsummer, the agencies joined forces under a joint task force dubbed Operation Double Shield. Its mission: identify and eliminate the leak inside local law enforcement while dismantling the cartel network it supported. Agents set up surveillance around the deputy's movements, tapping into his work phone and shadowing his off-duty activities. What they found confirmed their worst suspicions: frequent unrecorded trips to border-adjacent neighborhoods, unexplained cash deposits, and meetings with individuals already flagged in federal investigations. The statement confirmed what the city had been whispering since dawn. A sheriff's deputy was in custody, accused of aiding one of Mexico's most violent cartels. Martinez thanked federal investigators for their cooperation, but her appearance also marked a moment of reckoning. For the first time in decades, San Diego's law enforcement community faced the reality that the corruption they fought across the border had seeped into their own ranks.
San Diego County Sheriff Kelly Martinez has said her department won't be complying with a new policy that aims to limit county cooperation with ICE, the Federal Immigration Enforcement Agency.
We'll hear more from...
The timing made everything more explosive. Just weeks earlier, Sheriff Martinez had publicly clashed with the County Board of Supervisors over a policy limiting cooperation with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. The board wanted to restrict communication between the Sheriff's Office and federal immigration authorities, arguing that undocumented residents needed to feel safe reporting crimes. Martinez refused to comply, insisting that state law, not politics, guided her department's operations.
We cannot stand by while the Sheriff's Department continues to needlessly collaborate with ICE.
Now, critics were asking a new question. Did that same isolation from federal oversight allow corruption to grow unchecked inside her office? Commentators called it a policy paradox. One local columnist wrote, "When you cut off cooperation with ICE, you don't just block deportations, you block accountability." Federal officials didn't say it outright, but the tension was visible. An Immigration and Customs Enforcement spokesperson told reporters that the agency had long-standing concerns about cartel infiltration within local departments. A separate statement from the Drug Enforcement Administration echoed that sentiment, warning that organized crime doesn't just corrupt communities, it targets the institutions meant to protect them.
There was no shortage of public opinion last month when county supervisors approved a new policy limiting cooperation between the San Diego County Sheriff's Office and federal immigration agencies like ICE.
Behind the scenes, multiple sources confirmed that the Joint Task Force was widening its probe, looking at possible links between other deputies and the same cartel networks. The revelation that an officer had allegedly worked hand-in-hand with traffickers for years was forcing uncomfortable questions. Who else knew? How deep did it go? For the public, it was a gut punch. San Diego had long prided itself on being a national model for border security cooperation. Now that reputation was under fire. Local radio callers voiced a mix of outrage and disbelief. "If we can't trust the badge," one caller said, "then who do we trust?" Federal affidavits described the deputy's role as more than corruption. It was coordination. Investigators believe he acted as a communication bridge between Sinaloa cartel operators in northern Mexico and their mid-level distributors in Southern California.
Stop using county resources to deport our community.
Look at all the county resources that people are using.
Opponents disrupted the meeting several times.
According to the Drug Enforcement Administration's findings, the deputy used his security clearance to access patrol data, inspection timetables, and even internal alerts about ongoing drug interdiction operations. He then allegedly relayed that information through encrypted channels to cartel handlers, effectively giving smugglers a live map of law enforcement blind spots. In several cases, agents say he went further, issuing false clearance tags for trucks flagged for secondary inspection. Those vehicles, later intercepted in other states, were found to contain multi-million-dollar shipments of fentanyl and methamphetamine.
County jails, the new policy requires a federal judge to sign off before the Sheriff's Department can transfer an...
Two of the cartel figures arrested during the raids were identified as Mexican nationals already listed in a 2020 trafficking indictment. Both were fugitives who had evaded capture for years, operating logistics routes between Tijuana, Mexicali, and San Diego. Investigators believe the deputies' access to federal schedules helped them stay ahead of enforcement sweeps for nearly half a decade. When agents traced financial records connected to his personal accounts, they uncovered payments routed through offshore shell companies in Panama and the Cayman Islands. Federal prosecutors lawmakers allege that the funds were divided between the deputy and cartel intermediaries, a steady stream of quiet payoffs disguised as consulting fees. A senior Drug Enforcement Administration official described the case as one of the most significant examples of internal compromise in recent U.S. law enforcement history. Another investigator added that the operation's precision showed just how deep cartel influence had reached into domestic policing. This wasn't a mole, he said. This was a partner. Cartel influence had reached into domestic policing. This wasn't a mole, he said. This was a partner.
It seems pretty low bar, super reasonable. They have to get a warrant from a judge. You can't just have an agent decide kind of unilaterally that there's a warrant.
The case has also reignited debates in Washington over the blurred line between local and federal jurisdiction in border states. Lawmakers are now calling for oversight reforms that would require periodic vetting of all officers working within 50 miles of international borders. One senator from Texas publicly warned that the cartels no longer see the border as a line. They see it as an entry point into our institutions. In response, the San Diego Sheriff's Department announced a sweeping internal audit, reviewing digital logs, personnel files, and all communication records linked to cross-border operations. Sheriff Martinez has ordered every deputy with security clearance to undergo fresh background checks and polygraph examinations. Federal agencies have promised that the investigation is far from over. Both the Drug Enforcement Administration and Immigration and Customs Enforcement confirmed that additional arrests are expected as the corruption probe expands beyond California. One official called it a cleansing operation, a necessary step to rebuild the public's trust in the people sworn to protect them.
In 2023, the sheriff transferred 25 undocumented inmates to ICE, according to the most recent data.
This proposed legislation, to me, seeks to prioritize the interest of illegal criminal immigrants over the safety of law-abiding immigrants and citizens.
Reactions across the community have been mixed. For many, the scandal confirmed their worst fears about how deeply cartel money can penetrate. Others, including longtime residents near the border, expressed cautious relief that federal agents were finally confronting corruption instead of concealing it. A retired detective summarized the mood best. "It hurts, but it's better to know. You can't clean a house you refuse to see is dirty." Even as the headlines fade, the scars will linger. Within law enforcement, morale has taken a hit. Deputies now find themselves under scrutiny from the same public they've spent years serving. One officer admitted off record, "It's hard to look people in the eye right now. One man's greed made all of us suspects." The final scene feels almost symbolic. Aerial footage shows the San Diego-Tijuana border lit by spotlights, patrol vehicles lined up against the fence. The narrator's voice cuts through the static. For years, San Diego stood as America's last line before the border. But now, the question remains, when the guardians fall, who guards the border? As the screen fades, a single quote from a Drug Enforcement Administration agent closes the story, a quiet statement that captures the essence of the crisis. "We clean our house, no matter how dirty it gets." The DEA and ICE call it a victory, but for San Diego, it's a wound that won't heal soon.